Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Humans of Crypto podcast. I'm joined today by Pavel Jakovlev, and I'm just so honored to have him as a guest today. He's usually the one interviewing people, and today, for this special occasion, I was the one grilling him about his experience organizing the CV Labs during Davos, his experience with early stage blockchain and crypto startups, his mental health, a special show and tell, and a lot more. Basically, it was a wonderful conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed interviewing him. And if you actually enjoy the show, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting on this video audio podcast wherever you're listening and tuning in from. It means a lot. Let's get into it. Welcome to this episode number 3 of the Humans of Crypto podcast. I'm here with Pavel Jakovlev. I'm so honored to have you here. He's doing a lot of things, and we're going to be learning more about you today. Just a sneak peek, he's like a managing partner at ANCORE, an evangelist at SIGTIC. He's a host of the White Spaces show, which you should all go and follow and check out. He interviews wonderful, intelligent people, not just in crypto, like all over the place. It's really interesting. Thank you, Pavel, for being here.
Eleanor, it's an absolute pleasure. And I got to say, I'm already out of my comfort zone because it's usually me who's doing the opening speech and the presentation and asking the questions. So I feel like this chair is getting hotter and hotter. So yeah, let's get into this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that you've been always like a wonderful host. That's how I met you. I met you in Davos as the host of the CV VC Labs event in Davos, and you were already bubbling with energy, and I saw all of that and everything you've been pouring in. So can you give us like a glimpse of who you are today and like just share everything about you and everything you've been doing, and how come you've been always like this natural host?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So let's unpack it. Who am I? I think first and foremost, I'm a father. I got a beautiful 7-month-old daughter, which a lot of people complain about 2020, and I think for me personally, it's been the best year ever in my entire life. I welcomed my baby daughter. I started the White Spaces. I started my own company. So from that perspective, everything worked out. So yeah, first and foremost, I'm a father. Second, I'd say I'm a builder. I love to build things. I love to get involved in different projects. I love putting teams together. I think that's my big thing, like getting different people to work together, getting them around the table, just seeing what can we do together, what kind of projects we can embark on, and you start feeling you have different energies as well with different people. So, and this is something that I'm particularly excited about. And then who else am I love everything new, and maybe that's why I'm in blockchain and crypto and other tech spaces, so to say. I love some of the ideas, some of the radical stuff that people are thinking and doing and building. And it's just, yeah, again, crazy energy that's out there that it just rubs off, and yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Well, not everybody has this energy, and I think for having attended a lot of events and for seeing the energy that you put into that event and seeing what you know gave that for that week. Actually, it's not just, I mean, I was there just like casually, right? Just enjoying the fruits of your labor. But could you tell us more about that, maybe that chapter? I feel like that was maybe your first crypto blockchain chapter. I'm absolutely entangling the past as well, but
Yeah.
let's talk about your first moments with the crypto ecosystem.
I think, believe it or not, my first touch point was back in 2011. That's when I remember
Ooh,
going head
that's
to head.
very early.
Yeah, going head to head with a friend of mine, saying, Bitcoin is seems to be a a very interesting technology, a currency of the future. I remember getting Tor on my laptop. I remember getting onto Silk Road. I remember getting into deep web and just browsing. And like there was at the time there was a lot of hype about it in some of the chats and forums that I was part of. Um, but yeah, there was some kind of mysticism around it. And I remember arguing with a friend of mine about Bitcoin and all these different things, and he would take the piss out of me and saying it's all complete crap. And at the same time, he would be really into aliens, and I would take the piss out of him. So we just rub each other off that way. And then I think the next touch point was I want to say in 13. I remember it vividly. I was in Brussels, and that was the first time when I've seen the Financial Times writing about Bitcoin. And that was the time when Bitcoin hit about 250. Mind you, I didn't buy in, not in 11, not in 13. And then, there was that small hype cycle comparatively. And then everything just went away up until I want to say 17 and 18. And all of a sudden, like out of somewhere through the grapevine, I start getting, a bit of kind of, hits. Oh, Bitcoin. Oh, crypto. Oh, there's Ethereum. There's this, there's that. And I remember thinking to myself quite vividly, I was just like, is that still a thing? I thought that thing died. And then the funny story is, I remember coming back to Malta and meeting my friend and like spending some time with him at his place. And all of a sudden, there was the same friend who was taking the piss out of crypto and going that it's not going anywhere.
The
And then I'm
alien.
hearing this buzzing,
Aliens, but not crypto.
yeah, Bitcoin. And then I'm hearing this buzzing sound, and I'm going, what the hell is that? The guy was mining Bitcoins, and he mined a few and he sold them at $800 a piece. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Was he at least being profitable with his mining
I don't know. I
equipment?
never asked. I was just like, why the hell did you sell? He's like, well, I had to, in any case. And then that whole thing kind of started getting me into a place where I started learning a bit more about like crypto and blockchain. And I was also working at the time in Zug. And all of a sudden, like I keep hearing about all these different meetups and events, and it becomes more and more evident and more prevalent on my LinkedIn. Like people are talking about it, this and that. And I started FOMOing. I was like, okay, I need to get into this. Like I need to understand what it is.
What is FOMO? Just quickly for the
So
audience, what is
fear of
FOMO?
missing out for the non initiated ones. And yeah, I think in 18, I had a very interesting conversation with a gentleman called Ralf Glabischnig, who I consider to be a great friend, a mentor, and a former employer. Amazing guy. If I am networking and connecting people and doing different things, he's doing the same thing 100,000x with his network and his power. It's incredible the level of his engagement and his energy. Despite the fact the guy has a beautiful wife and 3 kids and like multiple businesses, so he's definitely a role model in that sense. And we had a conversation, and he was like, "You got an interesting profile. Why don't you come on board?" Because we were building a bunch of different things. And that coffee turned into a contract, and then we ended up working together at CV Labs and CV VC. I had a mandate to build an incubator, and then the incubator became much more. The incubator became an ecosystem, and out of the ecosystem, we started doing events, we started providing services, all sorts of different things. And I think the pinnacle of that chapter of my life was obviously Davos, where you and I have met, and that was pretty insane. I remember not having a good night's sleep for at least 3 to 4 months running up to the event, or a series of events, because we wanted to do one, then we ended up doing two, and then somehow out of two we ended up doing 8. I don't know, it's just something that has happened along the way where we were just like, is 8 a good enough number for us to do? I think that's gonna. I think we're gonna be fine. And yeah, it's just the Davos bug took over, and we just it yeah got overwhelmed, and I still don't have visibility nor understanding, nor do I want to even know whether we broke even or not, because it just I remember doing the budget and just like costs being added and added and added, and a few tickets were given away for free, and I was just going like, I hope we're gonna be like even by 1 franc in the black. So, but I mean, it's all good because it was an incredible experience. I mean, you and I met in person after speaking for so long, and a lot of people came to that event, and we've met a few actually, and you were at that panel as well, right? That was the fluffy pony, Britany Kaiser, what's his name, Michael Casey, and uh, yeah,
Nouriel Rubini.
yeah, exactly, Doctor Doom. And you kind of you look at those moments and you think to yourself, yeah, it was all worth it.
Definitely. I think you created whatever the balance sheet, you created a priceless experience for many, many people. And I feel like that's something you specialize in, and getting people together and fostering, and of course the balance sheets matter. Like it's something that we all need as event organizers. We need to know what we're spending, and when something sort of scales, like you said, you started with something small and then suddenly it was like 8 events, and suddenly you're like, okay, and you're still there, you're still doing it, so you pulled it off. It happened for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I vividly remember that conversation where we. I don't know if you were with us on a Tuesday when we had this underground club where we did our startup event.
No,
Um,
no, i
it was
i
yeah,
saw the I saw the bling. I was at the, what was it, intercontinental hotel. I saw
yeah.
the bling part. I didn't
You
see
saw
the,
you saw the bling part. You didn't. You weren't with
yeah.
us on a Tuesday when we had the party, and I think you actually texted me on a Wednesday, and you're like, "Hey, somehow I'm in Davos. Are you guys there? What are you doing?" And we're like, "Yeah, you should absolutely come, and you should join this panel. By the way, there's like a speaking slot for you. Here's a chair. Good luck."
It was so random. It's like, here, just moderate this now, and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, jump, and I'm like, how high? How
Yeah.
high?
But that's the craziness of Davos, and also for the non-initiated ones, I think a lot of people think that Davos is this place where a bunch of Berkshire Hathaway guys and Bridgewater associates meet, and they all decide on the fate of the future and like how they're going to rule the world in post pandemics. And reality is, it's just one big festival. And that's how I associate it. It's
Is
just
it though? Really, Pavel? What's the backstory? No, what's the Great Reset backstory of Davos? No, I must admit, how I experienced it as well is on a, like what you're describing. Like it's just like a bunch of people that are in the industry, so it's just extremely concentrated, and just bumping into Brittany Kaiser in the street was just like, what's happening in this place, and she had this sort of bright yellow coat,
yellow
like
hat.
fluffy. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. That's, for those that don't know who we're talking about, we're talking about Brittany Kaiser, who's behind, or who 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 knows a lot about the Cambridge Analytica story. Let's just,
Yeah. And I mean, she wrote a book. She's the main person behind the Own Your Data Foundation, and also the Great Hack. If that's a shameless plug, if you haven't checked out the movie, go on Netflix, have a look. It's I I I worked in the industry, so I worked with tools like Cambridge Analytica. So for me, that movie was not a revelation necessarily, but I know that for a lot of people, it blew their mind. And I always, whenever we have those discussions, and I go, so let me get this straight. You're using Facebook, which is a tool where you upload unlimited videos, pictures, posts. You connect from people all over the globe, whether you want to stay in touch or you want to creep up on somebody, don't care, not here to judge. You can chat, you can call, you can sell your items in the actual app, and you do that and you don't pay for it. How do you think that's working? Like, do you think it's a fair exchange that you just get to use it, but there's no price attached to it? And I bet you if Facebook tomorrow went out and said, you know what, we've done the calculations, we can leave your data without any problem, like we're not going to use it, but you got to pay us, I don't know, let's put a price tag on it, $99 a month. I think my guess is most of the people are not going to use it.
I wouldn't. I'm one of those Facebook users, I think, since 2008.
Yeah.
Not very cypherpunk of me, not very private, not very Tor, not very Silk Roady of me. At the time, not at all. Absolutely not. And just looking back and discovering social media like that. But I guess today people are a bit more aware. They use Facebook maybe differently than like we did in 2008 when we would just maybe overshare. I think people still overshare, but like
Yeah.
we didn't know. We didn't think. We were, I don't know, maybe just very uneducated users. I'm hoping that people are just a bit more aware, socially aware of what they're using and the platforms that they're using. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's a whole discussion to be had
Yeah.
about, ethics and all the rest of it. But, if we go back to Davos, so I'm very happy to hear that you had a similar experience, that it felt like one big party to you.
Can you to me, can you describe like how do you as an organizer manage hundreds of speakers, so many events, logistics? What is it like to actually be the one who has to be controlling all of that and delivering on it?
That's a great question. And I think my answer is I had an amazing team. And you've met a few of them. You've met Nikolai, you've met Hani, you've met Fabio, and those kind of experiences, they really battle test you and battle test your team, and it brings people together. In my opinion, like if you go through something this grueling, you develop a special bond with another person, and you know that they have your back and you have their back. But in terms of managing all of it, I think I'd say we made a lot of mistakes doing it and going into this. I don't want to say like, oh my God, we've executed it flawlessly. We lost a lot of resources. I would say human resources, just maybe over engineering some of the things that shouldn't have been over engineered, but just because we were dealing with something relatively unknown, I would say, especially for us. I mean, before that, we organized events outside of Davos, and Davos is a completely different beast. I mean, you have special passes, for example. You need to register people in a centralized database. Then Davos has made it even like not Davos, the World Economic Forum made it even more difficult in 2020. That before you would have just one pass and you would go into 5 different hotels, and then your pass would work everywhere. And then because it was getting out of control a tiny little bit, they said, all right, so as an external event organizer, if your event is on a Thursday in a hotel A, your guests would only be eligible to access that hotel with that pass. If you would want to have access to any other hotel, the event organizer from that hotel, from that day, almost like from that hour, needs to enable you. And that added a whole layer of complexity for us to register everybody within the system. As an organizer, we had to pay for everybody to get their badges organized. That was just, I think it was like, if memory serves me right, it was $200 a pop per badge. And then like reclaiming that, clawing those kind of costs out, crazy stuff. So dealing with that unknown was kind of the big thing for us, that we didn't really know how to operate in that environment. And then as you get closer to the event, it's a lot of meetings. Pretty much, we had daily meetings. We had the event organization team grew. I remember I was counting. We were at 20. So a few people on actual operations, a few people on promotion. We had a team of 3 people that would just all they would do is go through the tickets that we've sold, reconcile those tickets with the events and the guest lists, and then reconcile those because people could buy different types of tickets, and then reconcile those with the list that we would have to upload to the World Economic Forum database, and then pay. And then because it was all over and inconsistent, you would basically have to, yeah, a lot of reconciliation. And I remember sitting there with them and just there were, yeah, difficult moments where I was losing my mind, for sure. But
It's something as an attendee. Yeah.
you don't see it. You don't see it. It's just like that
As an
picture.
attendee. Yeah. No.
You don't see it, and then it's always
Yeah.
it's like that meme, right, where you have the front end and the back end. The front end is nice, and the back end is like super messy, and that's what it was. And I remember, I think, as we were going through our 8 events, I think it was Wednesday evening where we wrapped everything up at about 1 a.m. and we had to start the next day at 6 a.m. And I remember thinking to myself, we've got this. Like we're we're actually gonna make it. Because at some points I had my doubts. It was just like, what if, because that's the thing in the event management, is that you all like it's a rule much more than an exemption from the rule. Like something will go wrong. You just don't know what will go wrong, but you always have this impeding feeling that something in the event management is going to go wrong. And you're there and you're going like, okay, today went well. Is something going to go wrong tomorrow? But surprisingly, I think for the 8 events that we've organized, maybe it was the over engineering, maybe it was because we were just so afraid of making mistakes while being there, because it's a completely different level, right? If you do something in Zug or in Zurich and like somebody's not on the guest list, big deal, you just like issue a tag, you write it with a Sharpie, you stick it, you're done. There, if somebody's not on the guest list, they don't get through the security. And we were doing it at the Intercontinental. That's the same hotel where allegedly President Trump stayed. So, it's kind of heightened security. And the last thing you want to do is have somebody like you, who's a speaker, not getting through the door. So that's why. And yeah, we've pulled it off again. Like huge till this day. Like huge thanks to the team that has pulled it off. Like I remember, yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, they're all amazing friends, despite the fact that I'm not with CV Labs anymore. And like we meet up, and we even have we even invented a word in Davos, and one of our junior colleagues wrote something. I think she wanted to write schedule, like is what's tomorrow's schedule starts, and then she kind of misspelled it, and it turned out to be Sheduak. And then that word Sheduak just like took a life of its own. Like I could be in Davos, but then I became Sheduak, or like where is Sheduak? So it's just like, and that kind of brain fart of the
Aw.
word became like we had a group that was called Sheduak, and like we were calling each other Sheduaks. It was. I'm telling you, it's just, and these kind of moments. That's the stuff that I cherish the most.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine. It's like it's making me think of like hodl, like when it's like these
Yeah,
moments when you slip, but they become iconic because it's a slip, but it bonds people, and like you said, it's like your inner private joke.
yeah,
Yeah, it's hard to imagine for those that don't realize what Davos is. the level of security and what you're describing, I think it definitely shows an it's not the glam part. It's the hard security, admin part of an event that we don't realize as an attendee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the
and
beauty of it,
yeah.
as you were saying, right? It's meeting somebody like Britany Kaiser in the middle of the street. I mean, what's the chief Libra person? I keep forgetting his name. Is
Ah,
David
I
Martin?
don't even know.
Yeah. So like a friend of mine met him like just casually walking, and he has a selfie with him. Then Ray Dalio, who I'm a huge fan of, was at Russia House. And by the way, there's like just to imagine it, it's basically a bunch of storefronts that get turned into these. I would call them lobby centers.
Pop.
Yeah, pop up lobby
Ooh,
centers.
nice. I was gonna say pop up. I was gonna say pop up store for like all the brands you can imagine. There's like a Facebook pop up or like a Philip Morris pop up or okay, I should stop plugging companies. But basically, you walk through Davos and it's just like the fanciest marketing. The marketing team just has a blast creating like an experience basically for people.
Yeah,
It's pretty
and
much
it
it.
goes far beyond just brands. It's also associations. It's like groups of companies. It's countries. So there's like a Russia house and a Ukrainian house, just not too far away from each other, and then like you'd sometimes feel a bit of tension there. And as an Estonian, I can sympathize with both, but that's a different topic altogether. Then there's like Polish house, and like then you have all these different nights also, like an African night or Bollywood night, where it's like a party in the evening, which is also like guest list, and these are all also kind of lobbying, networking, connecting events. And surprisingly for 2020, maybe because we were still kind of coming out of crypto winter, there weren't that many blockchain and crypto events, at least comparatively, not as many as there were in 18 and 17, from what I hear. I mean, Brittany shared a story where there was like a 24/7 crypto party in a bar that just kept on going for 5 days, which, knowing crypto scene, I can totally see that happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you saw did you see that phase of the crypto valley or like the that really hyped crypto ecosystem in Switzerland, and did you see it go through these ups and downs, like these market fluctuations?
Yeah, I actually seen that. I think I joined, as I want to call it, like during the meltdown, because like one of my first events that I've attended, I've joined in October, and the one of the first events I've attended was in November, and it was in Basel, and I was one of the judges for a startup competition, and I saw startups, you know some are good, some are bad, normal pitch competition. You have your favorites, you vote, you ask questions, all right, no problem. But then there was also the speaking part and like the VIP dinner part and everything that you usually have now that I know in like traditional crypto blockchain events. But what I remember is people leaving during that event, just going like, screw this, I'm out, and just like leaving from this event on the first night. And then the second day, I remember the organizers, God bless them, like calling people and going, you have a speaking slot, like why aren't you here? And people just going, I don't have a speaking slot. They're like, no, we put you on a panel, you should be here. So they were struggling with actually having people on a panel to even attract the attendees, to even try to do a bit of like networking, matchmaking. Like it was that bad. And I remember looking at it and going, this is really, really sad. And I had no idea that we're getting into like a
When
year and a half of just
when
people.
was
It was
when
end
was
of
this?
18. End of 18. I was just like
End
November.
of 18.
Yeah,
Wow.
November 18.
Yeah.
And then I remember
Wow.
our
Wow.
event in Zug in March, which was, I would say, quite well attended. but maybe because we always try to do it not too big, like a maximum of 1,000 people, and try to bring in good speakers. And obviously, Ralf Glabischnig. No,
That's pretty big. That's that's pretty big. No,
yeah,
a
yeah, but
thousand.
it's
It's
very
pretty
it's
big.
also it was
Okay.
also very Swiss, right? And to me, like blockchain and crypto events, at least
Okay.
the ones that I've been to, would have to be quite big and international. I mean, the stuff that you see in
Hmm.
Malta, for example, the stuff that we've seen just last week. I mean, I've seen it through the lens of YouTube, Miami BTC, and all the craziness that was going on there, and me, hating all the health authorities for not letting me be there because of the COVID-19. I mean, it's crypto events are big and they attract a bunch of different people. But yeah, going back to the 18, it was a bit of a sad thing to see. And in Switzerland as well, despite the fact that Switzerland has a bunch of really, really good projects. Like, I mean, main protocols are in Switzerland, right? You have Tezos, you have Cardano, you have Polkadot. Near protocol, I think, moved recently. Definity, all of the big guys. Um, Despite all of that, there were a few companies that were closing doors in 19 and just, there yesterday, gone tomorrow. We're here today, gone tomorrow, whatever the expression is. So yeah, it was brutal, and the Bitcoin price at bouncing between what 3 and 6 on good days and just staying there flat. Ah, yeah, scary stuff. And then I have no idea what the hell happened. Why all of a sudden? How long has it been? How long has the bull run been going? A year?
Couple of months. Yeah, but but like it still fluctuates, right? But yes, we did come out of a bear market. We
Yeah.
left sort of the stagnant floating phase for sure, for sure. And now it's back at other games. Other waves are happening right now, but it's interesting for you to have lived it from an ecosystem perspective and to see it, well, at the time through the eyes of CV VC Labs, by organizing events, testing the audience, the you know panelists. I'm happy you weren't the one struggling with getting panelists and stuff at some point, but I think. What do you think overall of like the Swiss ecosystem? Like you've seen it go through a lot, and you've mentioned sort of certain protocols are present in Switzerland. Well, is it tangible, or is it just we have an address here? Is it more than that?
Well, I think it's far more than that. I think it's there's obviously the address part and there's obviously the tax part, so we can park it here. Yes, there are advantages to being in Switzerland from the company perspective, but I also think that there's much more other things happening in the background. I think we're seeing the same model what the Ethereum gang have had being replicated in Switzerland, and that is setting up a foundation in Switzerland, making sure that whatever capital is being raised against whatever idea is not being, is being managed in the most, non revenue generating way, in the most open and transparent way as much as possible. Because we've also had some stories with some of the protocols. We're not going to name names that were at risk of having some governance issues. Let's put it this way. But having that set up in Switzerland, then brains and some of the firepower coming from North America, like US and Canada, and setting the shop up in Switzerland, and then against that hybrid, raising funds in Asia, and this kind of interesting triangle of brains out of US and Canada, um, the neutrality and rule of law and taxation and support system and quality of life of Switzerland, and then the capital from China somehow creates these very interesting companies. I mean, let's look at Seba Bank, which is one of the most prominent crypto first banks, right? So those guys have raised, they would have raised more from Asia, but they've raised half of their seed round of 100 million out of Asia, being a Swiss bank, and I think that's quite sizable. And as for other players within the ecosystem, I mean, yes, of course, we have the most prominent protocols, but we also have a few layer two companies. I mean, one of the biggest ones is Utopia Music, which is doing really, really, really crazy stuff in terms of IP management for artists. So if you're an artist and your music is being played X amount of times on air, why aren't you getting paid? So this is something that they're solving. And then, if you go further,
This is interesting. Yeah, this is
yeah, Utopia
No, it's making me think of, because I have a next event after this, which I'll be participating in, and I'll be talking about Opulus, and it's quite interesting. But they basically use NFTs to split the copyrights with the artist, but also with their fan base. I love all these sort of interesting use cases where people are disrupting a certain industry. So yeah, happy to hear that Utopia is in Switzerland and part of the ecosystem. I think that was. I'm just asking a bit more about the Switzerland, because I I left, right. I'm not part of Swiss. I'm not in Swiss. I am Swiss, but I'm not living in Switzerland anymore. And I think from afar, the Crypto Valley always had like this aura, this coolness, and it was a lot in the news, and there was a lot of fun, I would say, PR releases, like CFF accepts cryptocurrencies for payments, or Zug accepts certain cryptocurrencies for payment of taxes. And I was just like, whoa. And then I heard a lot, of course, about the Crypto Valley. And then I wanted to see, like, now, today, if it was still the place. I want to ask if it's still the place to be for cryptocurrency companies, like if that's still going strong.
I think it depends where you are on on the spectrum, let's put it this way, and where do you want to take your company. And I know that there are some companies, some outfits that are extremely anarchistic, very kind of developer driven communities. That is, I would say, more Berlin, right? So I've been to Berlin Blockchain Week, or like Prague, right? And there's a lot of great talent. These guys don't, I mean, they don't care about taxes. They don't care about any of this stuff. They because they live in the IT world, right? In the tech world, and they have their own rules and their own. It's a completely different environment. So if your blockchain or crypto company is more that, then I think Switzerland is not the right place. If you are more into, hey, cryptos are digital assets, and they are an alternative assets, and whether it's currencies, whether it's security tokens, which are coming despite what everybody's saying, whether it's NFTs, or whether you're looking how to experiment with DeFi and kind of reining it in a tiny little bit more into a more centralized environment, because there's a ton of liquidity that's waiting for something, like some of these DeFi protocols that are out there in terms of yield generating and things like that, and fixed income. But you want to do it in a somewhat regulated way, with a regulator that actually understands what they're talking about, what you're talking about, and wants to work with you, where they don't just go like in the US, oh my God, let's let's see how we can regulate crypto, or let's see how we can regulate who was it recently, how we can regulate DeFi. And I was just like, by in its nature, that's not going to happen. Like, these are two opposite things. But if you want a regulator that actually recognizes this movement, trend, whatever you want to call it, then I think Switzerland is the right place to be, because you have that like even if you overstep some of the stuff with the regulator in Switzerland and you notify them and you go, "Ooh, sorry, innovation went a bit, and we kind of made a big boo boo and like collected 65 million, but we're not really sure whether that's But there's this." Then the regulator is going to go, "All right, let's have a look, let's assess it, let's work with you, and then let's figure
Yeah.
out how we can make it like we get it. It's
Yeah.
it's innovation, and you need to break a few things in order to be innovative. And like how can we ring fence it, and there's a sandbox, and all these different things. So I think
Well,
it's still the
so
place.
it's Switzerland from afar, yeah, is a box, right? We do see Switzerland as a box, but it's not. It was surprising and refreshing, I think, to see Switzerland. Well, as the mercantile place to be, or maybe as the maybe our banking system is not going great, so let's bet diversify at least our sector and allow this to grow. And I saw from afar, I could see that regulators and institutions were like, okay, we don't really know what's happening, so we're not going to do anything. Actually, we'll wait. And I think just by saying we want to see it grow first, I think was pretty interesting and did make a difference, especially I would say in the early days. I think now it's more common to hear countries being more open about cryptocurrencies and maybe not seeing it just as a criminal activity, but really seeing it the benefits and also financial and economical benefits for a certain region by attracting talents and money. Can you maybe share a bit? Like I want to migrate a bit. So I talked about your experience like as an event organizer, the ecosystem in Switzerland, and I think for some listeners, this might be interesting. You're the first, I think, who has experience in terms of a VC. Like you're the first who had to analyze and, and go through thousands of projects. And I've heard your talk that you gave for Blockchain UA. So shout out to those guys as well that always have great distributed lab is like a fantastic place.
Hello, you're a star. Love you, man.
Yeah, exactly. And you shared the three keys that you like to see when you're reviewing a project, three takeaways. Would you mind sharing them as well here with us?
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, as a VC, I think that's a stretch. I worked for a VC, and we need to separate the two. So CV Labs was in charge of putting together the incubation program and doing the scouting and filling in the pipeline, so to say, with startups. And we've managed to get, over a period of a year and a half, managed to get more than 1,000 applications. So yeah, I think you're saying thousands of applications. We're almost there. And
Okay.
now the guys are doing, yeah.
Yeah,
Go
I'll stay accurate. So
on.
a good chunk. You have a good chunk of applicants.
A good chunk of applicants, but then the selection process was then handed over to CVVC. What was interesting is that when me and my colleagues, Nikolai Reinbold, also shout out to my homie. Um, can you hear the baby?
Yes.
Okay,
Bring her.
because she's going to bed, and it's now. It's really strange. Just give me a
Aw.
sec. Just give me a sec.
Yeah, please.
Sorry about that. She was upset about
No,
something.
don't be. Aw. Well, you not holding her to go to bed and just rambling about your experiences.
Yeah. So where were we? VC. Yeah. So let's see how we can start. Let's take it from the top. So, and then whenever CV Labs would fill in the pipeline, then we would hand it over to CVVC for them to check the applicants, check their startups, do due diligence, talk to them, and then out of 1,000, I think we had a success rate of 1.7%. So out of more than 1,000 applications, only 22 startups were selected for the two batches. What was surprising to me is that whenever we went on like journeys and we ventured off into different ecosystems like Berlin or Tel Aviv, and like my colleague Nikolai went all the way to Armenia to find startups. So crazy stuff. Like the lengths that you would go to find the early stage startups. When you get to meet the people and you have a conversation with them, and you spend some time. So what we'd usually do is we'd go into like an ecosystem. We'd usually go when the event is there, and we'd organize like a side event, a meetup, and say, Crypto Valley is here. We're looking for startups. We're giving out 125,000 in exchange for 10% of equity. You should come and like at least do an information event, get some food, get some drinks, and when you start having those conversations with different teams, then you get to know them a bit better. And then when you come back to base and you speak to your venture capitalist colleagues and you go, here are the guys that I spoke to, or gals, and I think at least from the motivational perspective, these and these and these and these things align. And to me, the early stage game, like the early stage VC, is all about the team and trusting that the team that you are putting your bets on is actually the right one. And to me, the whole human element is extremely important, because they're so far away from making money. You're looking at like 7, 8, 9, 10-year horizon before you potentially can make significant amount of money on your investment. That the only way that you can be certain in your investment is if you're certain in the team. And I think going back to your initial question, what are some of the three factors? Factor number one is obviously is the team. To me, that the team is everything. And then the second one is, I would say, product. It's very important. Are you actually solving a problem? And is the problem that you're solving, does it need blockchain and crypto? Are you just like bolting it on to sell it to us to get the investment, or like, and
Yeah.
if you're issuing tokens and that's your only use case, oh, we're doing an ICO. I'm like, that's not, anybody can do an ICO. Well, not anymore, but in 18 and 19 you could just go, and then there you have it. And then the third component is, surprise surprise, it's the team again. Because even if you like your team right in the beginning and then you think there's a product market fit or potential product market fit and you believe in all of that, the benefits of putting people through an incubator is you have an incredible opportunity to spend 12 weeks with your investment, and you see how they behave, and you see who's coming to lectures, you see who's there in the office working late at night, you see when you just go, guys, we have a pitch opportunity, be ready in 5 minutes. You see who's ready, right? You see who's putting in the work. And I think immediately within even the first batch, out of the 12 startups that we had, you could see 2, 3 that were leading the pack. And then you could also see, a few write-offs as well. And you don't get to see this if you don't spend the time with the team. And I think that's, for me, that was incredible to actually be there with the founders. And then, when all the glitz and the pizzazz and all of the other stuff that you get through their marketing materials and their spiels and their pitches, that all fades away. And when you ride them hard during the incubation, how do they perform? How do they behave? How do they behave towards you? How do they behave towards their lecturers? How do they behave towards the other people in the team? How do they behave with their teammates? That's, I think it's very fitting to be talking about these things and the name of your podcast, Humans of Crypto. So I think it's very fitting.
I wonder why I asked that question. No, obviously, when I saw that bit that you gave, I was like, we wish that with cryptocurrencies that, it's only about the protocol. It's just where I'm here for the tech, all those memes that are just like, we don't need humans anymore. We have decentralized consensus algorithms, the human factor disappears, but it's still very much present. And I think what you're describing here is a very unique perspective. I think not many people realize how much it's still very much about the people. It's still a people industry. What we do, who we work with, and the team. And I think it's something that we don't always talk about, the human side of things, and that it matters more. If out of your three most must-haves for a company in an early stage blockchain startup, two out of the three are the team, whether it be how they present themselves, how they work, the staff that they recruit, the talent themselves, like as just pure jewels of like smart people. And then the next step, smart people that can work together. And that's the next level. And have you seen, like, of course you see all the good, the bad, and the ugly. What is a successful team then? Like you say, they show up, but if anybody who's listening who's in this phase and is in an early stage startup and they're thinking, this is something I'd like to pursue, what advice do you have for them?
Oh, that's a great one. I think it's that fine line between being confident in yourself and your abilities, and at the same time taking on a lot of negative feedback, which you will get, whether you want it or you don't, or you like it or you don't, or you seek out negative feedback or you don't. You get it. That's because everybody's an expert and everybody's going to give their opinion, from your friend to your mom to your dog. Everybody will have an opinion on what you're building, and some of that opinion will come from people who would like to support you and wish you well, and some of that opinion will come from your competitors and also potential industries who are actually quite afraid of you disrupting them. So you need to have that fine line between being able to manage that feedback and have the confidence in yourself to continuously execute. That even if you get, and not to get like too cocky on that side either, where you go, you're just a bunch of idiots, you don't know what you're talking about, I know everything, I'm gonna make it all work. Have like a good amount of sense checking once in a while and reality checking, and take that criticism, see if you can work with it. If it's constructive, great. If it's destructive, throw it out, and then keep building as much as possible, and just keep going till you get it right. I think that's the most important thing. And then I think it can get really, really difficult at times. It can get really like grueling when you spoke to 100 investors and none of them is biting, and you start doubting yourself. And I think that is the moment where a lot of, or at least the ones that I've seen, like teams really get upset. And even now, even the stuff that I do right now, like people get discouraged. How many times are you going to get your nose shut in the door? But I think the 101 or 102nd is going to be the right one. So the important thing is not to give up and continue going. And then even after all of those efforts and the amount of time and resources that you've put into whatever you're building, and if that fails, be ready to say screw it and move on to the next thing. Because that's what I mean. Some of the most
Wow.
some of the most successful founders have failed many, many times before they became successful. There's yeah, there's this running joke that in the Silicon Valley, you when you talk to a VC asks you how many times have you failed, because that's important. Because every time you fail, there's a learning, and then once you go through all these loops of hell and you learn, that's when you get to a more or less successful startup. And I'd say that relentless drive to know that you are building something that will change the world and that you need to build it no matter what, this is what gets people over the edge, I think. And that's why, and again, it's not for everybody. Also, if it could be the case that even if you even if you're building it and you're failing, it's just, it happens. It's the market. It's all of these different things, and you might have the best idea. I think I heard this. I think, was it a podcast or something like this? There was this. I'm sure all of you guys know Asana, which is this project management tool. That was
Oh
this crazy.
yeah. Oh yeah. What was that story? It's a Twitter. I know what you're talking. I think you're talking about a Twitter thread from the competitor of Asana,
Yeah,
or
exactly,
right? What was?
exactly. Yeah. That blew up like a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
they were like faster, they had better product, they had a great team, they had all these different things. And Asana met up with them and they said, "We're gonna kill you. Like, no hard feelings. We're gonna kill you because we just closed 60 million in funding and you have two, and it doesn't matter." And that's just that happens, and you need to be ready for these things. You need to be ready. You need to be aware that these things happen, and there's a reason why only a fraction of startups succeed, and there's a chance that you might as well, but it's also should be okay if you don't, right? But that doesn't stop you. I think the worst thing that you can do to yourself, and if you're listening and you're thinking about it, is not try, despite all of this. Because if you don't try, that is so much worse. Much worse.
Do you think this is a philosophy that you have applied to yourself personally?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'd rather regret things that I've done than things that I regret things that I have never tried. And what the hell? It's so cliche. People say, "Oh, YOLO." Oh my god! But it's true. It is YOLO. It is. You only live once. So what's the worst thing that can happen? Right? So you start a company, you fail, you go bankrupt. Are you going to not be able to find a job? Of course you will be able to. Even if it means, flipping burgers or becoming an Uber driver, you'll be fine. You'll find work. If you don't find work where you are, you're not a tree. You can move somewhere else. You can continuously figure out a way. I mean, we live now. We're really getting into philosophy. We're living in some of the most incredible times ever in terms of our access to technology, our access to knowledge, to connecting with other people, to talking to them, to getting feedback, to finding a mentor, to like hell, Kevin O'Leary, who one of the Shark Tank investors who I hold to like a super high account. He's got his own like vlog on YouTube where he talks about everything. Like, that's crazy. Getting into a mind of an extremely successful investor, and he's open, he's sharing about this stuff, like, this is how I did things, this is the playbook. So having all that knowledge and all that information, it's almost like, why wouldn't you have so much resources and so much stuff available to you for free, right? And not try to do something with that knowledge, with that, with all of that information. Almost owe it to yourself. I don't know. I like marketing. Come on,
Yeah,
like,
it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. We're totally at a phase in life where our generation is just blessed to be walking around with computers in our pockets, right? Literally. But to also, I think, what you described, the sort of this hard journey of a startup and to never give up. And I think in crypto, we like to also have this very like entrepreneurial, very like, I don't need all these diplomas, I can do it. A lot of self-starters, a lot of people that are just entrepreneurs just by being. And I think I want to tie this also to maybe the flip side again to all of that greatness that we see in our space. And I'm just flashback to an old post of yours on LinkedIn, which really touched me, where you were really open about your struggles as well. Like that, yes, there was all these things to celebrate, but there's also a cost, you
Mhm.
know? And to how do we navigate this space with, like you said, all this access to technology, to amazing people, and at the same time, finding ourselves and making sure that we as a human that we're happy and balanced. It's a very interesting, I think, decoupling that we go through.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm a strong advocate of mental health, and I think this is now that we are pretty much at the pinnacle of the Maslow's pyramid. I think it's we're becoming more aware of all of the things that are happening around us. And yes, true, we have all this technology, all this knowledge, but we also need to balance it with find a way how to recharge yourself. Figure out a way what helps you unwind, what helps you just feel better, and whether that's I don't know, punching bags or going for a run or listening to the music that you like or drinking a glass of wine, whatever you're poisoned for unwinding, that should be I would embrace that, because you need that. And it's very easy to get caught up in the hustle porn, as somebody once told me, right? This
Oh, that's a good one.
yeah. Which, like,
That's yeah, yes.
that's what it is. It's just like
Yep. It says a
motivational
lot.
people.
2
Motivational people
words.
wake up 5 a.m. like, oh, and the 5 a.m. club. Which, mind you, I whenever I get a chance, I join that club. Lately it's just been a little bit more difficult. But and you do get that time, and you do get there's all the benefits. And yes, routine is the way to go to kind of keep yourself accountable and to just like perform. But we also need to be absolutely okay with having an off day. Having a day where you just go, it's Wednesday, I got a ton of stuff that I need to do, but I don't feel like. And that's absolutely fine. And you almost owe it to yourself, because I think the work is always going to be there. The clients are always going to be there. The business is always going to be there. Nothing's going to happen if you miss a day or like a couple of days, or even if you just tell everybody, hey, I'm stopping, whether it's for your benefit or for somebody else's benefit. I'm stopping. I need a break. And I think that's important for me. That's important to realize. That's important to, like, I was kind of almost like retrospectively, I've realized I was going through a burnout only when I somehow like found a list of, do you have a burnout? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I just went through this checklist of like, sleeping well, you're angry, like you're irritable, you're all these different things. And I was just like, that sounds a lot like me. For like in the beginning of the last year. And yeah, I mean, once you go through something like this, that's when you start going, yes, I'm ambitious, and yes, I'm driven, and yes, I want to attain all those different things. But at the same time, if I'm low on fuel and my tires are worn, I'm not really going to get far, right? So you need to kind of stop. You need to take a pit stop, refuel, put on new tires. Spend, what is the pit stop time for the Formula One now? 2.5 seconds. Spend 2.5 seconds at the pit stop and keep
You're
going.
looking at me for F1. Wait, what is that? 2.5 seconds to what is that? What are you
Pit
referencing?
stop. In a pit stop. So when the car comes into the pit
Okay.
lane and
Okay.
they change and they fuel and you're out,
Okay.
like, and it's a crazy thing. They're
2.5
continuously,
seconds.
yeah. But obviously it's a joke, but
That's very fast.
no, because that's a again,
But basically learning how to so micro naps.
yeah,
Take
yeah,
micro
pretty much.
naps or
Yeah, take
stop.
micronaps.
Stop
I
at
think
some point.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a good yeah, like micronaps. And even if like reading a book or something that gets your mind off things, because it's easy getting caught up in stuff, and it's easy, especially when you love what you do. Like I've never seen anybody go through a burnout doing something they hate, right? It's all
Hmm.
like being overworked. It's all coming from a place of I love what I do. I'm, a high achiever. I want to outperform. Like I'm highly competitive and I want to win. I want to just like, and maybe if I work more and I take more responsibility, maybe I'll get ahead. And then you don't even know where you're getting there sometimes, but you just like, you're getting there somehow. And then it's also easy to take a step back, and it's also easy to get that passion to creep into your personal time because you're not really seeing the hours fly by, right? And you're just like, oh, it's the week. Oh, like all right, I'll work on Sunday. Or like Sunday's not enough. I'll take half of Saturday as well. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll wake up
Do you
earlier.
now do you, do you make a difference now between work time and like how do you what's your recipe right now? Like do you catch yourself basically? Do you have like more like safeguards to make sure that you might don't go back to a burnout, zone?
Yeah, yeah. I think whenever I'm starting to see that I'm pushing things and it's like it's not going,
Mm.
that's usually a sign for me to stop and like take a break. And I might be overwhelmed with like FOMO and anxiety and like checking my phone and checking my Telegram because if you're in crypto, that's where the whole world lives. Um, and I might participate, but I step away from like the intensive work where I need to like do research or like write content and like do some planning or things like that. And I'd rather it has happened to me a few times where I'd be like beating myself up and going like, oh my god, I have this deliverable and it's on Wednesday and it's like Tuesday evening. I'll just like I'll have dinner and like I'll put my daughter to bed and then it's 9, so maybe if I spend an hour then like I'll go to bed at 10 and then I'll wake up at and it's gonna be fine. And then I just go, whoa, 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 whoa. Take it easy. Just wake up at 5 tomorrow and you're fine with waking up at 5. Have a coffee and just go at it. And it worked a few times. I mean, I apologize to some of my clients and they go, I'm sorry, I promised it yesterday, but here it is. And then they go, it's 6:50. What's wrong with you? So yeah,
Okay.
and it's
So
just
you
yeah,
so you
it's being aware. I think.
okay. So that was like okay, being more aware because I was like that's still not separate. That's still like very very tough. I mean, obviously you have like you said you have deliverables and deadlines and clients and you want to perform and you want to retain clients and you want to make them happy. Um, so it's I think it's also the nature of this industry maybe that it's just so nonstop and like you described like this FOMO feeling. If it's not market FOMO, it's professional FOMO and it's all this sort of you can never miss a beat. I think a lot of people feel that and just to learn how to step back and breathe. And I don't know, have you gotten into any tips to be more zen and to sort of be more, yeah, more rational, maybe?
I think so. My daughter, despite being 7 months, have taught me a lot of patience recently. So I think that's just like being patient with the fact that some things just don't happen fast enough, no matter how much you want them to happen. And no matter how much you push, no matter how much you just like all over the thing, it's just not going to happen. Like everything happens in its own time. And I'm an extremely impatient person. I'm just like immediate, like now. And you can also tell that from like the way that we've, for better or for worse, I don't know, like future will tell. But the way that we've scaled Anchor is just crazy. So we started in October. We were servicing 14 clients already, and we're 9 people. We just out of nowhere. And I appreciate the fact that it's a bull cycle, but it just went too fast. Um, but the fact that I have my daughter, and the fact that she almost, especially in the earlier months, not like she's very old now, uh, she almost forced me to spend time with her, to put her to bed, because it's like she was getting overwhelmed because she was developing very fast. And like, imagine you would see everything in like gray shapes, and all of a sudden you start seeing color. And all of a sudden, the next day you start seeing patterns. And then the next day you start seeing depth. And then the next day you start seeing your parent from far away. So that's like an immense development difficulty almost, for your nervous system. And then every time we'd come to bedtime, she would be crying, and I would soothe her, and I'd spend hours. And like, I knew I had to work, but I didn't have an option. Like, I needed to be there with her, and I needed to get her to a place where she would sleep. And that kind of put me in a state like, I got to see this through. That doesn't mean that on some nights I would just like put her onto bed, walk out, and be like, no, I'm done. I'm done. And my wife's like, what do you mean you're done? I'm like, I don't care. I'm done. Like, I cannot do this. She's like, but that's not like just nor here nor there. And that kind of, I guess, taught me patience with things. And it's, yeah, you go through some stuff, and then you experience it, and then you go, all right, so got to learn how to be patient.
Yeah, you became a father, I feel like 3 times in the last 10 months. You had, of course, your baby daughter, then you had
Mhm.
ANCORE, and you also had white spaces. So you have like, you, you sort of gave birth to a lot of new things. And you mentioned Anchor. Do you want to just tell us a bit? You mentioned it that you're growing and you have 14 clients right now, but what are you doing?
Plain vanilla, we do everything. I mean, we say that we work with founders, right? So we try to position our company as a sparing partner. So you come to us when you want to grow your company to the next level, and you can be early stage or you can be a bit more developed, but you're missing that additional push. And whether that push comes from reorganizing your strategy, or that push comes from like framing your communications properly, and doing a bit of marketing around it, or maybe like running some product market fit tests, and potentially getting a bit more feedback from the market, we will help you with this stuff. And it's been an incredible journey. I i say to everybody that when I was working in CV Labs, and if you think of it as a funnel for startups, then the kind of the very bottom, the 1.7% made it through, and I want to work with the other 98.3% that didn't. So if I can just help them somehow figure things out, then maybe we can get more ideas funded. And I'm a strong believer that tech will save the world. Maybe it's naive, maybe it's idealistic, but I think if it's the only way that we can engineer our way out of this mess. And whether by figuring out a way how to like harness energy from the sun, or I don't know, creating alternative food stuff so we don't cut out all the forest because we need to have more cows because we like candied bacon. I don't know, something, or we go to another planet or some stuff like that. So I honestly believe we can engineer our way out of this. And I want to see my daughter grow up without the need for any assisted breathing things because we're running out of oxygen. I want to see my grandkids. Like, I don't want to have that doomsday scenario stuff. Like, I actually want to see a better, more technological, more sustainable world. And maybe if we help enough startups, at some point, somewhere, somehow, somebody will change the world for the better place.
Is that how you get clients? You're like, will you change the world? If you don't, then you're not on our portfolio. Is that
Yeah. It actually
do
says,
you gatekeep?
yeah, no, I can read this to you. I mean, this is what it says. I'm not even, there's no.
No, but it's difficult because I think this is something we want all of us to see, and then every startup will have a different way of phrasing it, or how they're actually solving a problem, or they think they are but they're not. They might be creating a whole other one. But I can imagine that being so close to these startups, you said that the human factor before was so important, and you see these startups grow or die basically. It must be really emotional as well, like just to be so involved and have so much. Maybe you as a supporter and everything, sometimes you want that kid to go through school, but it's just not gonna fly. Does that happen when you just like?
Oh, I get involved. Like,
Yeah,
I get emotionally involved with this
I
stuff.
can imagine.
I just, I think the so, and I get frustrated a lot, especially when I know that my team is putting in a lot of effort. And you could say, yeah, but they're kind of paying you for it. But I know that it goes beyond, because I have the conversations behind the scenes, and I know how people, especially some of my team members, how they push through their ideas, how it's not just a business for them, it's an experience. And because we work so close with founders and with core team, we get to know the people. And it's and consulting in itself is not a business where you make a lot of money, per definition, because it's not very scalable, because the more clients you have, the more people you need. So it's kind of leveled out complete entirely. So there are different motivations. So obviously, when we're seeing that some of the founders are not performing despite all of the tools, then we have a talk. And my COO, Valentina, is, I think sometimes we play bad cop, bad cop. Uh, Not even bad cop, good cop. We're both bad cops with some of our startups. And I think, yeah, it's the last one that I had. We have this incredible startup. It's a female founder. I think she's doing something that is very much needed, in the space, and she's brilliant, and she's extremely kind, and she's super bubbly, and she's very positive, but she doesn't want to do fundraising, and she would rather give it to somebody else, and that somebody else, and she would like pay them, and like do all the, and just not to do this. And I had a bit of a tough love, heart to heart conversation with her recently, and I said, everything else, including your kid and your dog and your husband and your house and your bills, everything takes a step back. The most important thing is you need to sit down and you need to start fundraising. And that means you need to be talking to only investors. You cannot talk to anybody else except maybe us. But that's it. And you need to take this seriously, because how can people take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously? So, get, and she was like, yes, you're absolutely. I was just like, and I remember like getting so frustrated that I think after that I think I apologized to her. I was like, you know what? I might have been too much. Like, no, 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 it was all good. It was fine. Like, I needed this. And I'm like, yeah, but I can be a bit too much on that. But yeah, I get involved, and for better or for worse, I don't know. Maybe sometimes I go overboard, but yeah, I get involved. So far, none of the startups died. We're
Maybe
all
that's what your
okay.
clients that's what your clients want. They chose you because there's a lot of consultancy out there. They chose you because of that, or you, Valentina, the rest of your team, because of that touch. Probably that's maybe you're unique in a way, because others, like you said, would just be like, well, you're paying us, we're going to do the strict minimum. But if you get emotionally invested, then she might listen to you more as well. Or I mean, in this case, she knows that you're not, doing this for no reason. Fundraising is really interesting, though. And she's reluctant, and this, just dive a little bit, she's reluctant because she wants to focus on other sides of the business instead of that part, or is it just not her cup of tea to go pitch, you know 300 times? Is that what's blocking her?
I've I've witnessed two types of founders in my in the past few years, and there are some who see this as a necessary evil, and they just like go with it, and they go, yeah, I'd rather be building my product, but money is important, and therefore, like, I need to do this. I haven't met anybody who's like, yeah, I knock on 100 doors and none of them open. That's amazing. Like, nobody's truly enjoying this. You're asking for money, and especially the way that somehow there's this perception that investors are here and startups are here or even lower, that because they have the money and you're kind of asking them for the money, and there's this kind of slightly skewed relationship, which I don't subscribe to. I think both need each other equally. So investors need new ideas to invest in, because if they had ideas and they had the money, they would have been somewhere else, but they don't. That's why they need ideas to invest in. And the same thing on the other side. You have the idea, you have the plan, you have the team, you just need the money. So it's a transaction and of two equals. At least that's how I see it. But somehow we're we're not always there, let's put it this way. And some founders can do this well and they can manage that well, and they just like, yeah, I just got to go through this. It's a process. The more people I talk to, the higher my chances are of fundraising. Whereas some, I think, in my opinion, it has to do with their fear of rejection and their fear of just somehow not making it, or maybe failure. And this is, going back to some of the things that we discussed previously, that they just they'd rather they so much don't want to do this. They know they have to do this, but they don't want to do it, and they would rather give it to somebody else. And there's a whole host of professional fundraisers and all sorts of brokers, and oh my god, I'm going to introduce you to so many people. And reality is, I'm yet to find somebody who would come to a startup and would say, love what you guys are doing. I'm going to take you to my 100 investors. And whenever I bring somebody to them, 50 invest. I don't, maybe it exists. I just haven't seen it. And the tools are there. You have Crunchbase, crying out loud. You have PitchBook if you want to go really fancy. You have all these different tools. You have LinkedIn, you have Sales Navigator. All you have to do is just spend the time, sit down, spend the time, and just go through the fundraising. And we go even as far with some of our clients where we say, we will do even the first step of the list of investors that we prepare for you, which are tailored. We will even ping them on your behalf for the first time. And you will have the Calendly link in your message, and then the investors can find the Calendly slot. All you have to do is just show up and do the job, do the pitch. This is something that we cannot do for you. You got to do the pitch. You got to nail them down. It's a relationship, and you got to start building that relationship from the first time you talk to them. And some are okay with it. Some will just say, "Oh, thanks for the list. I'm good. I'm going to do it." And others are just maybe somebody will introduce me to somebody who will have some dry powder, and then somebody's going to. It doesn't work. You have to do the job. That's my thing. You
Okay,
can see
so
I'm
you're in the
getting
you you
you can
hold
see I'm
one, you
getting
hold
really
hands.
involved.
You're really holding people's. It's really, I yeah, I salute because I can. There's a reason why I didn't go down social work at some point in my life because it was just so emotionally consuming to support people. Like not even crypto. We're talking refugees in Geneva. So it was just like,
Yeah.
but I couldn't. At the end of the day, I was drained by. I couldn't. It would come and more than crypto, even though crypto gives me, other problems. But like, it's really difficult to get so involved with certain people or certain projects, because it will creep in your dreams and your subconscious when you're not with them, and you'll be doing grocery shopping, and then you'll be like, oh my god, they need to do this, or it's just like it's round the clock in the end that you're working for them, even though they might not all realize it. Interesting. So do you bring these founders to white spaces? Like tell us more about like how do all these kids that you have interact with each other? Yeah. And by the way, the Pavel has a show. So I know we already mentioned it before, but white spaces is like a really interesting format. And I really like how you've done it. It's very upbeat. I love as well the graphics of it. It's really nice. So yeah, tell us a bit more about what you're doing there, and maybe just give us like, yeah, maybe a favorite guest of yours or something you really liked learning from
Oh my
hosting
god.
all these people.
Oh my god. No, there's I'd say there were a few memorable conversations that I've had with folks. But let's maybe start with how all of this intertwines together. So maybe I take a step back. So 2020 was supposed to be a year where I would have four kids. So there's a fourth project that I unfortunately didn't have the power to build, but it's coming along. So and that will all I like this kind of ecosystem approach to things. And for me, white spaces also fits into the overall concept where Anchor is the powerhouse, the consultancy, and then the white spaces is it's like a content marketing strategy where we get to know very interesting people, and the main topic that we discuss is very similar to you, right? It's humans of crypto. For me, it's personal stories of people who work in innovation. And maybe I'm a nerd, and maybe some of the topics that I choose and some of the questions that I ask maybe could be considered a bit too deep, and some of them I ask because I'm genuinely interested, but I don't even know how the audience may be responding to some of them. But I just get the kick out of the conversation that I'm having with truly remarkable people that are working in the in the industry. And I remember I was being like, when we were embarking on this a year ago in the summer, I was just like, the only way that I would do this would be in a studio. And the studio would have to be entirely white. And then my producer found it, and we shot there, and we shot our first four episodes there. And then we've realized it's a bit too far, and people just like won't be coming to the studio unless it's central Zurich. And then further lockdown measures came into force, and I was just like, in order for me to continue feeding this content beast, I need to do Zoom. And I hated that experience so much. But nonetheless, I had
Oh.
really good conversations. And I think now tomorrow we should be releasing our 10th Zoom, what we call remote white spaces stuff, which is not bad given everything. There's a pipeline of additional 2 episodes of in person that we also need to release. And yeah, the whole premise is talking to people who work in innovation, and feel them out for their personal stories. I think in terms of the most favorite one, I'm biased because, yeah, I think the most favorite one was with my current COO Valentina, and so we clicked before, and then we had the interview, and then during the interview we got very very deep very fast and very personal in our conversations. So we were talking about things like, just like with you, burnouts, mental health, human, issues, and mindfulness, and how do you manage certain things at work, and all of these kind of human related stuff, which she's obviously passionate about, and I'm passionate about. And yeah, I remember having that interview. I remember that very quiet ambiance, despite the fact that we had some people in the audience and there was a production team and we were streaming it live, and then kind of
Oof.
becoming very vulnerable on live TV with
Yeah.
Valentina, who turned out to be my COO in a few months, was great. It was a great experience. Um, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the people that I've interviewed were not as remarkable. I mean, the last one that we've released with Johan, which we only have on YouTube, I haven't even promoted it on LinkedIn, which I need to do, speaking of which. That's a remarkable story of a prop trader who just went from trading equities to trading cryptos, and he's has this incredible libertarian, anarchistic, very similar to Zeb's approach to the way the markets should be working. He hates regulation. He hates like all of the stuff that the European Union is doing. He's an amazing, amazing person and a really good friend. Then the interview with Fungi, where we talked about some of the volunteering stuff that she does and her amazing life story. I think that was really, really empowering. The interview with Arun, who is this, insane insurance and insurtech innovation expert who is sponsoring kids in India, right? That's what he does. And just, one of the most humble human beings that I've ever talked to, and like very positive and like full of energy. Amazing, amazing, amazing person. Eberhard, who is doing like crazy stuff in the medtech space. Matteo, Jesus Christ, Liberty. I mean, all of them have incredible, incredible stories. And to me, like getting to know them and also having that period before the interview where they go, "Oh, I hope I'm going to do well." And I'm like, it's don't worry. You're building amazing things and you're worried about an interview. Like the latest interview we have that's coming out now with Aryan. So his team of like 10 engineers built this like tilting vehicle out of Belgium with like bootstrapped small amount of funding, and it's like electric, and it's just, and he's like, oh, I hope, and he's sitting there and he's got these two machines behind him, and he's like, I hope I'm gonna do well because I'm not really an interview type. I'm like, are you serious? Like you've built that stuff behind you and you worried about this? Like this is easy. So yeah, it's amazing. It's great.
It's my question was your favorite, and I realized it was a terrible question because how can you have a favorite when you speak to all these people and they all have something so unique about them? And that's also why we keep bringing on new people, because we keep learning from all these different people. And I'm looking forward, actually, I think this is a good segue maybe to talk about you again, because I know you
Yeah.
have all these wonderful guests. But we have a special bit in this show, which is called Show and Tell. And for those that are listening, I guess jump to YouTube to see what we're talking about, or Odyssey. But I wanted something where a moment in the show where, even though we're through Zoom, we haven't had a lunch or seen each other for now more than a year. But where you could talk a bit about something that we could remember you by. So this is the show and tell moment. Do you mind showing
Yeah.
us and telling us a bit about something?
I thought about this long and hard, and I really wanted to flex on Kalani and his golden Rolex from the previous episode. And then I realized that most probably it's going to be a weak flex, despite the fact that there's also some things attached, some meaning attached to to my watch as well. But like, forget it. Like, I'm not gonna flex on that. It's way too crazy. I mean, I spoke to him after I've seen the episode, and I was just like, Kalani, you're crazy. He's like, yeah, man, it's an amazing watch. So, and I'm like, I'm huge. I'm a big watch buff. So, and I love watches. I nerd out on that as well. So seeing that was just like, whoa, amazing.
Okay.
You also need to understand
Yeah.
that what he's showing there, and if you haven't seen that episode, you need to go and watch it. And then I'm going to nerd out now. Is a factory set diamond bezel, and that is something which is very strange in the watch community. If it's factory set, despite the fact that it's iced out, as the cool kids call it, if it's factory set, it's amazing. If you give it to somebody and they set it, even if it's the same set, but they set it aftermarket, it's terrible. So the fact that he has it factory set and like it's a gold watch and it's like one of the top models from Rolex is just like extra credit to Kalani. And he's also a good friend and a colleague and a client, so I know him. I know him quite well. We worked on a few projects together. But back to me, I think my show and tell is very simple. It's these, and despite that some, and I've heard this so many times, people really think that this is a fashion statement. And it has nothing to do with me being blind. It has nothing to do with me kind of, and I can show it to you. Like, you see how I wear stuff, like till they break. Like, people think that this is me showing off and they're entirely fake and I'm just doing it to look smart, I guess. So I kind of extrapolated this and almost made it my own personal trademark. That even in the white spaces, you actually see the glasses turning, and it's all about like putting them on and putting them off. So I think, despite the fact that I somehow,
Yes, that's true. And now I'm just
yeah,
for the
and
for those that are listening, Pavel is showing his glasses. That's what he's been showing me right now on the camera. He's showing his worn down, but very much him glasses.
which, why are you even listening? You should be watching us on YouTube
No.
because we're so much better in person, I think. So yeah, these specs have been with me for 3 years, and the story of how I got them were even, it's even crazier. Like, I was in St. Petersburg. It was dark. It was cold. It was winter time, and I remember I deposited my car with the car rental, and I walked into like a supermarket, and it was just like, I think 8:30 or something like this, like late in the evening. And I walked into the first store, because my previous in the first like optics store that I saw, because my previous glasses were, I think I broke them or something. Like, I didn't have glasses. It was terrible. And like, I'm, especially at night, I'm Mr. Squinty Face, because like that's the only that it's just I squint terribly. And I walked into the store and I just, looked at a few specs and I found these and they put them on and I said, I need to do a test and how long it's going to take you. And then there's this typical post-Soviet doctor, which is, always kind of slightly educating tone and like, young man, don't you know you should have glasses that fit you? And do you have any headaches? That's most probably because you're wearing like old glasses. And she just like gave me a lecture and she's like, don't you know that we're closing in half an hour? And I just said, yeah, but can you get me the glasses done in half an hour? And she was like, she just went, fine, let's test you. And then she tested me, and I grabbed dinner, and then half an hour I had these glasses. Like, in St. Petersburg, in half an hour in the middle of winter evening, something. And they've been with me for 4 years, and yeah, they've been everywhere in the world with me. They're terrible. They're worn out. My daughter bit them because she constantly tries to take them off and like nibble on them, and you can see this. Do you see this? That's my daughter. She scratched my glasses with her two teeth.
Oh, I oh,
So they're very special.
go her. Two
And
teeth.
exactly. So and even though I think, if I'm being very vain, I would maybe look better without glasses. I still don't see myself like going through LASIK and like removing them because they're now a part of me, and that's my show and tell.
Aw, thank you so much for sharing. And they're great glasses. They do suit you very well. I'm also a glasses person. I can't touch my eyes. I don't know if you've gone through that whole like, should I have lenses, contact lenses? But yeah, I think it's interesting that you shared something that you wear every day that we see on all your shows, that you actually do have a bit about them. Now that I remember, you do have a bit where you take them and remove them in a very like smart way in the intro. So I'm happy you're not squinting on this show, and that we can see you properly and they can, yeah, see the rest properly, and that you're doing everything that you're doing in crypto, in innovation, in tech through these lenses. um, yeah, really, Pavel, you've done a lot, and I can see that all your journey, for all the way from 2011. You mentioned the Silk Road, you mentioned discovering it, not touching it, going through all
Ups and
of
downs.
all of these experiences. It's quite a journey that you shared with us. Quite a journey, and all these children, whether they be actual actual children, and also all these projects that you are not only. Are you also like a foster dad? You kind of are. You have like all these like
I
other
call myself a
babies.
mama bear. I call myself a mama bear. That's
Are
what I
you?
am.
Oh right, mama bear. But the rest of your team, then they're like, I see. You have a lot of mama bears then, because I've also noticed that it's exclusively female right now. Your team at ANCORE, right? Or at least
Uh,
on the website.
Not exclusively, yes, predominantly. Well, we've added a few male profiles as well because we've and this is news expose. We've launched a venture builder as of last week, and now we have a second team that is
Wow.
focusing specifically on building ventures. We found amazing talent, and I'm extremely glad that I've met one particular person who I'm building the venture builder with. But yes, other than that, Anchor is predominantly female, and I've heard through some of the founders that we work with, they go, Pavel, we've been talking about this, but can you tell us how does your wife feel about you being surrounded by these brilliant and very good looking women? And I go, just it's absolutely fine. It's my wife is like knows most of them, and then yeah, it's just there. But I also feel that working with female colleagues is teaching me a lot. First of all, that I'm not as demanding, nor am I as pushy as I've been with my male colleagues. But then I also don't need to do that because the quality and the
Hmm.
level is is very much up there. And what I appreciate, and again, I could be painting with a broad brush, but what I appreciate is the level of diligence that no matter how much I try or I've observed, it's very rare to find men who have that level of diligence that I have with my female colleagues. It's just when there's a task, when there's a challenge, I know that they will go through hoops and loops and all the way till they complete that, and it's to the highest possible level. And I'm very hands off, and I don't need to, I don't need to write them. Like I don't need to, like it's very, yeah, it's an incredible experience. Like I'm like I wouldn't want to hire anybody else for the positions that I have. But yes, somehow it turned out to be mostly women. I don't know.
Well, from you've mentioned like you've had these several projects, right? And now you're launching this venture builder. Was that the project that you sort of had delayed from the other years? You mentioned before that there was another project. Is that coming to life?
No, no,
Ah,
no. That's
that's even
not.
another one. That's another
That's
project
that's
then.
another one. Yeah, because I think my long term vision is, and I told this to my wife um, some time back. So the only two things that I want to be doing in the long term is I want to be working with my early stage investments. So I want to get to a place where I will be investing in early stage startups, and I want to be a value add investor. Like I don't want to be a guy that just like comes and like drops capital and then just flies off and then, you know, ramps things up so the next valuation is higher and higher and higher. I actually want to be a proper angel investor. That's one thing. And then the other thing is maybe one day I'll get invited to more events and like speaking opportunities. Hint, hint, whoever is listening, because I think I may amass by then a ton of interesting stories, and I'd like to share them and experiences. And yeah, that's the only two things I want to do in the long term. And then that final project that I've delayed from last year, and maybe I will launch this year or maybe next year, not sure, is slowly getting me closer to that dream. So it will be a nonprofit, and it will focus on connecting, yeah, ideas and capital, I'd say, but in a non kind of aggressive revenue generating 100x output type of way. Yeah. And then, but that means that all of the other things would have to have strong teams in place so I can step back. And I'm getting there with ANCORE, believe it or not. It's, again, I will continue to shower her with compliments. Valentina, my COO, is an incredible colleague. I mean, 15 years in corporate is, you can see that experience coming through. Very well organized, commercially driven, super focused, all of the attributes of a great managing partner. So I know that ANCORE would be in good hands with her. But for like the white spaces, venture builder, I still need to build out the teams. And then maybe at some point I can do that final form thing. Let's see.
Wow, so much to look forward. So for those listening, apparently Pavel's recruiting. So go check out
I
go
am.
check out
Hit
what
me
he's
up.
building. If you're yeah. Yeah, if you're a startup and you're thinking, "Hey, I need extra consultancy. I need someone to actually show me the ropes, show me how I can be better and how I can actually make a difference." Also, hit him up. If you want a speaker and you're looking for someone interesting to share stories like we've shared today, maybe about the Swiss ecosystem, what it's like to be in the early stage investor game, and what it's like to support these startups. Again, hit Pavel up. And I, what you just mentioned, that unborn idea or project about this nonprofit, I yeah, maybe now or later, but I want to talk to you maybe about an old project that I was involved in because I saw the volunteering activities you've been in, from alumni stuff to also, what you've done with the St. Catherine project. I see
Mhm.
that you've done that for a long time as well. And I can see that the nonprofit side is also in you. And something that really motivated me when I was at uni was a project called Euphoria. Euphoria was the name's already really good. I don't know if you know them. They're Swiss based actually,
Okay.
but it's kind of crazy. Then the idea is very much like, you're a change maker, I'm a change maker, we're all change makers. So if anybody's like wants to blame a part of my life for the person I am today and for learning how to facilitate and talk and present, that was actually a really life-changing experience. It was 2.5 days where they taught us that we can have a project, that an idea doesn't have to just stay an idea, it can become something very fast. And I owe it to them. I owe it to Euphoria and to the programs that they have, like Impact, which taught me that, and which university never taught me. So maybe that's something we can talk more about. I'm not involved with them anymore, but it was definitely a very interesting project to have.
Definitely.
Pavel, any last parting words that you have for our audience? On my side, it was an absolute pleasure to have you today. Honored to have you as my third guest for this Humans of Crypto podcast. Thank you for sharing all your insights. Tell us last words.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I know we've been trying to schedule this for a while, and I'm extremely happy that we've spent pretty much the last 2 hours just like chatting away. Like we haven't seen each other from 2020, which is the case pretty much. I think my last message is very simple. Whatever, if you cannot sleep and you keep thinking about something that you want to do, and you obsess about something, but you cannot find the strength or I don't know, the will, or you keep putting it away in like a, in a cupboard far away, try to actually execute it. Try to find a way how to test it, how to build it, because I'd rather see you fail with whatever and like put that thing to rest than have regrets about not trying it. And that's I think that's my only thing for everybody, is that if you keep obsessing about something, do it. Just like Nike said it, just do it. It's brilliant. And another shameless plug with another brand.
Thank you.
Which we're not sponsored.
It's fine. We'll accept the
we'll accept the royalties.
It's fine. Yeah, well, it's a good slogan. It sucks that they just have the monopoly over it. It says a lot. It says a lot, and it fits well to what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish in all your ventures. So again, Pavel, thank you for these last words. Thank you for being here tonight. And I hope we can see each other very soon in Switzerland, in person.
You're always welcome to come back.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.